Well, what a momentous day here in the CSRA as Crosslink Consulting announcing a major partnership. Hi again. I'm Neil Gordon, very pleased to be welcomed by former U.S. Attorney of the Southern District, Bobby Christine, along with Gordon Renshaw and Patrick Reynolds, two of the executives with Crosslink Consulting. And gentlemen, how are you today?
Doing great. Doing great, Neil. Thank you.
Doing well.
Wonderful. You know, I often like to equate sports and business, and we're recording this on the heels of the Super Bowl. And Gordon, would it be safe to say you signed a major free agent?
Yeah, that we did, and it's always a pleasure to not only be able to gain a tremendous partner and someone who is more than just a proven individual, but certainly would be more than star quality, but also as a human being that we enjoy friendship and someone that I've been privileged to get to know as a person as well as a professional.
Wonderful. And Bobby, the last 4 years as U.S. Attorney there in the Georgia district, the Southern District rather of Georgia, share with us some of the threats cyber-wise and some of the damages that you kind of witnessed firsthand.
Certainly, and thank you for having me. It's a blessing to be able to consult with Crosslink, to be able to find some like-minded folks in the business community. And I'll jump right into answering your question after I say this. A lot of people say, it's not personal, it's business. Well, that's when you take your expertise and your money and you go somewhere else. Because if you're going to link up with a service provider, with a business of any description, if they're not willing to make your objectives their objectives, if they're not willing to make your successes their successes, then they're not willing to make it personal. So go somewhere else. In the Southern District, I was blessed to work with a really, really competent team of lawyers and law enforcement and support staff. And across the spectrum, every element of what we did touched on the reality of the burgeoning cyber existence that we all live in. Whether it was civil litigation, a lot of folks don't realize that there is a civil responsibility to the U.S. Attorney's job in addition to criminal. We represent the United States government not only in the prosecution of violation of its criminal statutes, but also represent the United States of America when the United States has a claim, when they're plaintiff. We defend the United States when the United States is a defendant. But across the spectrum, not only in the criminal realm, but also very much in the civil realm, it touched on cyber technologies. Now, of course, here regionally, we have the U.S. Army Cyber Center of Excellence here at Fort Gordon. We have Army Cyber Command. We have the largest NSA facility outside of our national capital region, plus all the allied civilian industry that follows that. I made an analogy the other day when I told somebody, if you build an automobile plant, the people who make mufflers are going to come to that region to sell you mufflers. The people that make brake pads are going to come to that region to sell you brake pads. Well, it's the same with cyber. In addition to the government element of cyber locally, there's a tremendous synergy amongst private industry that is consuming cyber or working in that space. So I say all that to say this, and I can't go into all the specifics in some cases, but regionally, we have the elements of cyber that have global impact. And when you have that, some bad actors are necessarily in the networks. We were able to identify and prosecute a number of malevolent actors. I'll give you an example. It was really a one-off, or at least a front edge of the frontier of cyber theft in real estate closing transactions. We actually prosecuted here in the CSRA, one of the first scammers that we got our hands on that were an operation originating out of Nigeria, where they were through different techniques, both using artificial intelligence, but also human interaction through phishing, spear phishing, and other types of phishing methods to get into a real estate closing transaction and steal closing funds that were meant to purchase a home. Through some very, very good law enforcement work and through some very active use of the tools available to the Department of Justice, we were able to thwart that and bring that ring of thieves to justice. But in those sorts of stories, you see the heartache, you see the human toll. In addition to the business costs, the human toll that such a criminal enterprise takes. And I am just thrilled that I have been able to find CrossLink. God put them in my path. I hope they feel the same about me, but they put them in my path because I was committed at that moment to take these life lessons and the legal expertise. I would like to think I developed that while being United States Attorney for the Southern District, and bring them to bear on behalf of clients in the civilian space. And it's just an exciting ride, and we're just getting started.
Well, and Patrick, you founded CrossLink about 17 years ago. Share with us just some of the major changes in the IT cyberspace that have maybe led to this point that you would want someone of Bobby's stature to be a senior advisor.
Sure. The IT industry has been rife with examples and tropes about how bad the service experience is. It's been accepted or it's been looked over because, they're specialists and they're geeks and they've got specialties that common people don't have. And so a lot has been put up with, and, a lot of bad behavior and bad customer service has been gotten away with because, there is an expertise that not everyone has. And so, when we started in 2004, it's been very different from the beginning. It's been a very customer service, a very loving attitude. And what I see just within our own walls is, we don't treat problems when someone reaches out with an issue. Even internally, we don't talk about it as a ticket. We don't impersonalize. We don't depersonalize it. We don't talk about it as ticket 44. It really is, Neil needs your help with this problem. Please, connect with him at noon. He's expecting you. So that customer service has been instrumental from the beginning about differentiating what we do and how we serve. And at the end of the day, it's because we have a different reason for doing it. We really do care about our neighbors. We're called to serve our neighbors with the gifts that we've been given. And that's something that we deeply believe in. And then each year, as we add new staff members, it really is finding those that have that same heart attitude, who desire to serve, who are gifted technically, and who are called to serve in a godly way to the people of this community, and those that have put their trust in us. And that goes outside of this community. And so as we've seen since 2004, there wasn't the term cybersecurity, it was just information security. And as we've seen the threat rise year by year, there's been more and more company budgets assigned for cyber defense, and of course we've heard the horror stories. We've seen not only the companies get breached, and the greatest threat today is ransomware, and we've seen Atlanta be hit with ransomware and not be able to serve their communities. And so, of course, we've been defending against that. We've been protecting clients against that. And it certainly is. It's sort of like medicine. There is no way to prevent cancer unilaterally. It is, you do the right things, you get the right checkups, and in a lot of ways, defense against a cyber breach is similar. It takes layers, it takes auditing, and it takes regular reviews. And so when it comes to ransomware, Bobby brings a different voice and a different perspective than anybody in the cyber community is going to have. He has, unlike most of us, so what we are able to do is we're able to defend, but we're not able to go after the bad guys. And my goodness, we feel so impotent when, we're having to roll to the backup, because there was a breach somewhere, which, thank God for the disaster recovery, but businesses feel impotent. And with Bobby, he's had a different story. He's been able to pursue those Nigerian princes who have those millions of dollars that they want to give you if you'll just help them with the tax money. As we've seen that spearfishing campaign for decades, it's still going and they're still successful, and they're preying on seniors and they're preying on people who don't know any better. And it's criminal. Not only is it criminal, it's just despicable. It's despicable human behavior. So having Bobby on the team helps us address that, help in new ways, and it helps us go after that in new ways.
Well, Bobby, it sounds like they are very glad to have you, A, and B, you're certainly going to provide a unique service. And in a moment, Gordon will touch on how the three of you will partner educationally in the community. But it just strikes me, someone watching it who has a company or works closely in the administrative department of a hospital or a school system, what risks, Bobby, do they have to their data? And then are there liabilities you think beyond that, maybe like their clients?
That's an excellent question. And the answer to it is yes in all regards. We think, particularly those of us who were not raised in the tech environment, we think of threats coming in in singular vectors. But the reality is that there are multiple threats from every direction. And sometimes those are coordinated threats that are brought to bear. But many times there are different unassociated bad actors coming at you from all directions. Think of education being delivered in the cyber environment, particularly with COVID. Think of the almost infinite number of new avenue of approaches for bad guys to take, which in large measure are concealed from somebody who really isn't looking for them or isn't sophisticated enough in the cyber realm to know where to look. Each one of those industries, government, schools, private businesses, they're all potential targets. And also as a consumer of technology, our ability to understand what they're after needs to evolve. If you were to ask me years and years ago, if somebody got into your computer, what would they be looking for? Oh, they're looking for my bank account numbers. They're looking for that personally identifying information. And then, of course, the follow-on question is, well, what did they do with that? Well, I would have thought they're going to go over to Wells Fargo or wherever, and they're going to try to get into my bank account. And while certainly that is an avenue of approach, we have as a community built up defenses to that. Well, did the bad guys just quit? No, they continue to look for how to monetize that which they steal. So they'll take your personally identifying information and they'll take others and they'll bundle it together and they'll go to the dark web, which has matured into a marketplace. And I'm very proud that a number of our prosecutions in the Southern District over the last 3 years actually helped in closing the despicable uses of a business called Backpage, where many things allegedly were brought to the marketplace, which were illegal. Not only the selling of particularly stolen data, but also the selling of humans in the form of human trafficking, modern day slavery. Some of our cases touched on stolen items, typically data, marketed on the dark web. So we have to think about different threats every single day. I told a group earlier today that if you're using yesterday's defenses, yesterday's technology, well, then you're already at risk. Because when you possess other people's items, whether that's data, whether it's personally identifying information, what have you, when you possess that, not only are you required to guard it, you're liable should your protections be breached, which gets to the second part of your question. There's an ever-burgeoning degree of liability for all businesses and all governments. I think back to my time as a constitutional officer for Columbia County. When I was a chief magistrate, we innovated many things. We used regionally, under the leadership of Judge Wade Padgett, we were the first regionally to use video conferences. So the sheriff did not have to bring incarcerated individuals all the way from Appling to Evans. But by doing so, we were creating interconnectivity that provides portals for attack. avenues of approach for bad guys. Now, the county's doing a good job in protecting that, but this is the sort of service that Crosslink can bring to enhance the protections against those sorts of things. And here's the bottom line. If you're in possession of data, if you're in possession of things which are valuable, then you have a duty to protect them. And if you fail to do so under industry standards, you are liable. Think of when the automobile first became common. There weren't a whole lot of lawsuits over car wrecks and personal injury. But as soon as the community of those who practice law became aware that there was the ability to pursue damages because of automobile accidents, all of a sudden, that's all you see, liability being a claim because of automobile accidents. Well, the same is true in cyber. We're at a wagon wheel sort of moment in the cyber growth and the maturation of the cyber industry, because we are just beginning to realize that, just like with the advent of the automobile, the liability attendant to possessing data for clients opens you up to liability if you're not using the best practices. And yesterday's practices aren't the best practices. The best practices today were made today. And that is what is so unique about technology. It's ever evolving. There are bad guys, both state-sponsored and individually sponsored, who right now are developing new ways to pierce your network. And if you don't have today's best practices, you're liable.
And Bobby, in a moment, we'll put up some information where companies or institutions, nonprofits may want to sit down with Crosslink and kind of examine where they're at in their cybersecurity space. But before we do that, Gordon, around the same time Patrick was forming Crosslink, you were in charge of the Columbia County Chamber of Commerce. You met Bobby. You've been a connector ever since. How do you see yourself connecting Bobby to the community on behalf of Crosslink Consulting?
Well, and it's a great question, and it's a privilege to be able to do it. When I first met Patrick, about a year and a half ago, understanding what was making Crosslink Consulting a different story, a different feel, and a different approach, I was very impressed and had already seen, and this is going back to my Chamber of Commerce days, but all the years since, certain sectors, and I went into one after the Chamber of Executive Recruiting. I was amazed at just how primitive some of the lack of expectations were within that area. I would have C-suite human resource officers of multi-billion-dollar companies sitting in front of me, stammering because they couldn't believe that a search could be done in a very small period of time and with guarantees, because nobody was doing it that way. Well, the reality is that everyone should be doing it that way because that's the only way that makes real sense. So I was seeing that in the IT cybersecurity world, a lot of folks in our industry were not doing the kind of job that really needed to be done to truly partner with a client, and whatever that client might be, whether it's a business, small business, a corporation, a healthcare practice, a not-for-profit, as well as a government entity. All of these, when I would be speaking to them, would come up with the same remarks just about every time up to the present. How do you know that your IT security is solid, that you're good, you're in good shape? And they don't know the answer. Well, and the reason they don't know the answer is because the expectations are not there regarding what should I expect from my IT service provider and why and to what extent. Bobby is making the point. He's absolutely correct. From a technology standpoint, today's solution is not going to be good, tomorrow. And certainly the past is not what you want to be using in the present. Having him as a senior advisor in that way, we're delighted to be able to be on that cutting edge. We already are, but we're trying to be even more so. From an educational standpoint, the opportunity of bringing Bobby on a regular basis to those sectors, to government entities, county governments, municipal governments, to the healthcare industry. I just posted just between our last interview and this interview something on my LinkedIn profile that a good friend of mine who heads up the Better Business Bureau in Eastern Virginia had gone ahead and posted. And it was having to do with health insurance companies and the healthcare practices that are a special target, and that they have numbers that, as of today, it dwarfs what was just months ago. Not news to us, but a lot of healthcare practice. We were visiting with an administrator yesterday. Smart gentlemen, they know that they don't know everything they should, but where do they find that information? We want to be able to ensure that Bobby, as part of what that partnership with him enables, is to be able to speak directly to folks that are running practices and running businesses, and that we can be able to therefore come in and to help our neighbor to be able to assure that they are safe.
Well, and I know Bobby will be authoring some thought leader articles in the future, be available to do some speaking and consultations with companies. And before we give everyone the who, what, where on how to get in touch with you, Patrick or Bobby, anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I'll tell you, I would like to add this. One of the things about Gordon and Patrick that is such a blessing for the community and for their clients, our clients, is that they are not satisfied with doing phased changes. They realize that cyber threats and the cyber industry is moving so fast that you have to regularly take leaps forward. They are transformational leaders, and I'm just excited to be associated with Crosslink.
Wonderful. Patrick, you have the last word, sir. You are the one signing the checks and the founder.
My real thoughts is so many businesses don't know what they don't know, and they feel like it's still a 1980s world where the bad guy is some fella in his basement doing war dialing, trying to, play games on the school computer, play games on a business computer. And that's just not the case. The bad actors that Bobby has seen and that Bobby has prosecuted is state-sponsored governments. We have the United States has enemies, and those enemies are funding and rewarding breaches. And those breaches aren't just, some national company. It's our neighbors. It's these companies here. I unfortunately have met with some of those businesses that have, they weren't taking care of their networks. They didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't realize how advanced the threat was and how significant the damage was going to be. And they've lost everything. They've lost all of their data. So it's a joy to be able to just bring more visibility to that and just improve the way that we're able to connect the businesses so that we can protect them, because that's what we have an obligation to do as we're gifted. And we're looking forward to doing that with Bobby.
Well said. Well, Gordon is your first point of contact. His cell phone number is actually up on the screen. I know very well from having late night calls, he's happy to help you at any time because cyber is often very urgent and immediate. And the website, of course, crosslinkconsulting.net. They're headquartered in the North Augusta area and serve Georgia, South Carolina, and would be willing to help you. And gentlemen, very, very best of luck. Be blessed in this new partnership. It's very, very exciting, and I'm glad to be part of this momentous day.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Neil.